and how do you develop your story. For example, what makes a character memorable to you? What do you think about it? How do you create a character? Do you make a character profile, or do you work on the past of the characters?
That's one of the most difficult. There's no, as I said earlier in the session, there's no formulas. You can, for example, a young screenwriter could want to write about his mother or his father. He knows them very intimately, and he would bring great flesh and bones to the skeleton of a father figure or a mother figure, and that's very personal. And that is a wonderful, wonderful beginning for a movie. It is not a movie in the end, though. It is a character, and that becomes a character movie. We see plenty of those. A small movie, a man comes in and out. He's alone. He's a widower, and he lives a life. He meets a young girl. He falls for her. Or she likes him. He falls in love with her. He's an older man, she's a young woman, and we know his character, and then presumably the screenwriter writes about the young woman, and we get to know her character, and by the end of the movie, they fall apart, they don't see each other, or some other complication occurs. That is a basic character movie, right? Very little happened, except that they fell in love, and perhaps they had some complication, and the movie ended, and we walk out, and some people would love it, and they think it's an Academy Award because it's a simple little movie about two people. And that might very well work. And there was a movie, in fact, in 1950s called Marty. Marty was a butcher in the Bronx, played by Ernest Borgnine, and it was, and Betsy Blair, I think, was the woman. And it was a very lovely little movie, and it won the Academy Award. So that is two wonderful characters make the movie, and that was it, and a neighborhood. So that's a very essential piece. Then you get a larger movie where you have more than two characters or one character, and you have problems because you're doing a big event-ridden movie, and you have a lot of events that happen, and you have to march to those events, so you have to make your characters line up and march along those events as quickly as possible. So the characters sometimes are reduced to boxes or non-characters or simple people. And often you have a movie where there's one interesting character, but all the supporting characters are basically there to advance the plot and to advance the fate of the main character. The best kind of movies, the ideal movies, and we all strive for them, might well be a movie with, let's say, 10 characters, 1 star, 2 stars, and 8 supporting roles. And each one of these people is feels real. And at the same time, you have a series of events that are occurring that are very involving. So you care about the outcome, but you care about the people. For me, that is the best kind of movie. I have I've tried to make ensemble pieces. I did that with Any Given Sunday, was about 9, 10 people. Wall Street was about 4 people. Savages is about 6 people. And the plot, you judge it. We'll talk about it tomorrow. Savages has an event-ridden plot, but I do hope that you have time to understand that there's 6 people in this movie that you can take an interest in. Or maybe you'll only be interested in 5, but these are very tough to do. So what I am saying in the short run is character makes action. The actions must come from the character. So it's not enough just to do character. You have to create the action that flows from the character. All the violence that occurs in Savages, all the betrayals, the murders, the the pursuit of love and power come from the inner needs of the character. And then it becomes interesting to me because the character at the beginnings of the movie changes during the course of the movie. So that's what I'm going to say about character, but they're very hard to do, and I would always think in character and action, character and action. What's the famous saying I'm paraphrasing the Greek drama when they say, your character is your destiny.
And you use a lot of
Well,
real.
you rattle them off, man. You know, slow down a little bit. I need time to think.
Okay. So what's the case if you use a real character as an inspiration, like Jim Morrison or Nixon, or anyone else, or
I would not pick a real character unless I thought I could capture something of interest. Includes Jimmy Morrison is the opposite of Richard Nixon. There would be two more different people in the universe than those two. And I enjoyed both of them. Those were very much single character movies. There were other characters in it, and I'm not so sure I succeeded in bringing up all the other characters. But the Morrison character fascinated me because of his contradictions, because of his sense of poetry. And I always regard that as a movie about poetry more than I do as a musical. But the man was a special character. He existed, and I adopted him the best I knew how. I did my research off of 126 different descriptions of the man accumulated by his biographer. That was, he interviewed 126 people who knew him at various stages of his life, as a young boy and as a dying figure. And those 126 or 130 sketches were the basis of the movie. There was so much criticism leveled at the movie from the people like Ray Manzarek of The Doors, who knew him at a certain portion of his life. And frankly, they had a relationship, but it was not a successful one. And Morrison didn't want to see him anymore. But Manzarek, of course, jumped in and he said, "This is not the Jim Morrison I knew." You know, it's very hard to make those figures. The same is true about Richard Nixon. Again, with Richard Nixon, we read most everything we could. People knew him at different times of his life. I think and also I must say this is important, I didn't like him. And I still did the movie because I found him fascinating. And this is where the role of the dramatist comes in. I think if you are a dramatist, you need not like your central character. I'm not so sure that Orson Welles and Joe Mankiewicz liked, not Joe Mankiewicz, Lou Mankiewicz, whoever the Mankiewicz liked Hearst, but the character is an ugly character. But that doesn't matter. You can make ugly characters. Ivan the Terrible is an ugly character. But it's great. Those ugly characters are sometimes fascinating. A Portrait of Stalin or Hitler Downfall was very fascinating. So you don't have to like him, but if you're a dramatist, you should try to understand him and walk in his shoes. I have to say, I did not like Nixon, but I think it's one of my best movies. Andy worked with me on it and completely backed me, by the way. It was a very interesting story. It was so hard to get that movie made, and I have to say, Mr. Vanya, you did Hungary proud, and thank you for having made the movie. I also would like to say Alexander is the most contradictory character, and I urge you to see the 2007 version. And George Bush is a character that I could not stand. I went to school, he was in my class at Yale University, and all that group of privileged kids, arrogant about the U.S., have taken over the establishment of our country, taken over the power. And it's been bad news, but I could not stand Bush and I went into the movie, and actually I empathized with him. That's to say, I didn't sympathize with him, I empathized. That means I crossed over, and I started to, he gets up in the morning, and he looks in the mirror, and he likes what he sees. That's what we all do to some degree. And you have to like what you see in order to have the confidence to carry out your life. So I did the Bush movie, and I was criticized for not going hard enough on the man. You know, I don't agree with that. I think there was an empathy for the man that could be confused with sympathizing.
And did he react to the movie?
You're going fast again. What?
Did he react to the movie? Did he seen it? Have he seen it?
Have I seen my
No. George W. Bush. Has he seen the movie W?
I was told he did by somebody, yes, who knows him, yes. But he would not react publicly to that. I'm not sure he liked it, but certainly he probably thought Josh Brolin was very handsome and looked good.
Okay. Any questions here? There? Sorry, wait for the microphone, please.
Where's the movie actress? Is she here?
There are some here.
My name is Esther. My question is, do you think in any good film the hero must change during the film? That there has to be a character change in the film to make it a really, really strong film?
I believe so, but that's not to say it. I'd have to go. I'm searching my head quickly, but I'm not so sure Borat changed. And it was a very enjoyable movie. I think change, yes, but did Nixon change? Yes, he changed. At the end of the movie, he resigns, and he gives the best speech of his life in resignation. Did he mean it? Yes. Did he learn from it? No, because when he was out of office, he pursued the same policy of trying to redeem himself and did not seem to have learned from the experience. But he was a fascinating character. You see him crying on his knees, praying with Henry Kissinger. Did he change? You know, you can argue that's a philosophical thing, but what you have is depth. You have complexity. Does Hamlet change? I don't know. Does Hamlet change? I mean, he seems to be fixated at the beginning of the movie, and the complexity of his soul never really lifts so that he can take a direct action until it's too late. Othello goes on his way until he commits the ultimate act of jealousy by murdering Desdemona. I think you have to change. It's an interesting discussion, but what we're talking about is depth, and that's what character is. The more you can put the flesh in the bones, and when you go to a real life subject like a Nixon or a Bush, you have to study all the incidents of his life. You try to get that from the incidents. You see the man. When I looked at the George Bush 43. Nixon, what I thought was a very dark and complex individual, but I thought Bush 43 was a very simple man, a two-dimensional man, if you will, whereas Nixon to me was more of a three-dimensional man. So I played the movie in a different vein, which is more stylistically very simple. Bush 43 never seemed to have the ability to be conscious of anything he did. He just didn't seem to react. So at the end of the movie, he looks at his wife, I believe, in one of the last scenes, and he says, he's almost crying. He says, "What have I done that's so bad?" And I think that was a beautiful portrait of a man, because he is not a man who's capable of great self-analysis. Nothing wrong with doing a movie about that. You can make a movie about a simpleton, too.